in the Sustainable Research Institute. Right. I have an expertise in agroecology, industrial ecology, and sustainable regional development. I've been given the pleasure today of chairing this Global Food and Environment Institute seminar titled Food on Film, Community-Led Filmmaking in the Context of Bradford Food. This seminar will be presented by a good friend of mine and colleague, Dr. Rory Padfield. He is an associate professor, also within the Sustainability Research Institute. He has broad academic and industrial experience in sustainable development, environmental governance, sustainable supply chains, and stakeholder engagement. Most recently, his focus has been on sustainability storytelling, which I think is going to be the focus of his presentation today. For those of you who are new to these seminars, the Global Food and Environment Institute is an interdisciplinary research community, bringing together stakeholders from across academia, industry, and public policy to work on the complex challenges of food security and climate change. If you'd like more information on the GFEI, then please visit our website. Just for reference, this is just one of a series of seminars held by the GFEI with links to past seminars available in the chat room, or you can follow us for our Eventbrite website, our GFEI website, or through @globalfoodleads.bskype.social and or on our LinkedIn profile. Before I hand over to Rory, please ensure all your cameras are off as usual and your microphones are also switched off for the duration of this seminar. Rory will speak for approximately 20 minutes. During that time, if any questions or comments come to mind, please place them in the chat room and we'll hopefully have about 10 minutes at the end to speak to Rory in more detail. May I remind you that the seminar is being recorded and the recording will be available via YouTube. And with no further delay, I'd like to hand over to the star of our show, Rory Padfield.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul, for that very generous introduction. And yeah, I'm very, very happy today to give a summary presentation, a short presentation really, on a project that I've just completed. Yeah, so the title of the project, Food on Film, Community-Led Filmmaking in the Context of Bradford Food Sustainability. So what I'll do is I'll cover a summary really of what we set out to achieve. So this was a short research project, only about a year or so, with the intention of working with a number of community groups based in Bradford who work in or have some relationship with food and food sustainability. And the idea was to work with them to produce a film, a community-led film. So I'm going to give a bit of a summary of the project, a little bit about the methods, and some reflections at the end on the project as a whole. Before I start, some really important acknowledgements to make. So I'd like to thank, first of all, Leeds Arts and Humanities Research Institute here at the University of Leeds and the Cultural Institute for the financial support. Also would like to thank the City of Bradford Metropolitan District Council, who provided some match funding. So thank you both to you. I'd like to thank my colleagues here at the University of Leeds and also Alexandra Dales at York St John University, which made up the research team. And I think most importantly, the 5 community groups based in Bradford who have been involved in this project. They're the ones that really the kind of engine room of the whole project. They were the ones that produced the films. They came to the training, and so yeah, thank you to Catholic Care, Horton Community Farm, Feeding Bradford and Keighley, In Churches and Erin Nessa, and you will see little clips from their films very shortly. So just in terms of the structure of the talk, so I'll give a little bit about the background to Bradford and the methodology used. I'm going to show some clips. So very, very short clips with, you could spend, plenty of time going through those films at your leisure. We're going to provide the clips in the chat, so you will have access to that. I've pulled out some very select moments, if you like, from those films. So I'm going to show those, and then I will talk a little bit about the impact and potential impact of these films and some academic critical reflections. So if you're not familiar with Bradford, it is a city, it is a place that faces significant food insecurity. The image on the right hand side is a print screen from the Good Food Strategy 2023, and there are a number of different statistics, reporting how it is in Bradford with regards to food. And I've just picked out one, I think, quite significant one, that 8% of the population experience hunger. I mean, that's quite a shocking statistic, given we're sat in the UK high income country. We really shouldn't be facing this sort of issue. And the Food Foundation, they feel that they report that it's likely to increase by 60% in the years ahead. So this is a critical issue, and it's only going to get worse according to those statistics. Now, there's lots of different reasons and lots of different factors that explain that, and I've just pulled out a couple. I haven't talked about the big structural issues within the food system. We could do a whole session, a whole MSc program, if you wish, on this issue. But I've pulled out a couple of important points that have come up during the project, and also through that good food strategy. So the cost and supply, access to healthy food is an issue within the city. Of course, the cost of living crisis feeds into that. We also see limited green spaces for food growing, for recreation, for those kind of important well-being needs. They are very limited in the city. And linked to that, we then see issues around obesity and health conditions, all again linked to food. So really, this is an important issue, and it's something that we need to focus on, study, and try and address. Now, connected to that, we see an increasing role played by the third sector. And when I say third sector here, I'm meaning charitable organisations, non-governmental or non-profit. And they are really providing a very essential, critical service for a lot of those people that are experiencing hunger. But of course, many of these organisations are not at the front line of policy making and decision making. They have limited voice, limited awareness from outsiders on what they do, and limited opportunity to affect change. And that's really the group that I'm focusing in here in this particular project. We want to understand what these organisations are doing and amplify their voice and really get their message out. In keeping with the sort of storytelling and filmmaking theme, they are superheroes, no question to me. They are real life superheroes. They are doing a really important job, but their story is often unheard. And that's really the point of the project. The next little bit of background really is about storytelling. Through this project, I mean, I've realized that I'm not a great storyteller, but I've learned something about storytelling. And I think through, with the right sort of tools, with the right sort of training, I think we can all tell a story about our lived experience, whether it be through Instagram, our daily experience, all the way through to a film, a documentary style film about our organisation. We all have the ability, I think, to tell stories. We just need a little bit of support. And this project, again, is all about that. So in terms of the project objectives, there were four main ones. The first one was to deliver training on filmmaking or participatory video and storytelling. So, and I'll go through that in a little bit more detail shortly. So those were the two sort of main training elements. And we aimed that training at community-based organisations in Bradford that work on food. The second objective was for those organisations to produce a film, okay? But it should be owned by them. So yes, we supported them, but the whole idea was that those community groups would produce the film. They would be involved in the storyboarding. They would be the ones that were doing the actual filming and the editing afterwards. We then wanted to support those groups in the impact, so the activities afterwards in terms of then how they got those films out there, and then evaluating the project as a whole. And this presentation will just really focus on the top three. We're still in the process of evaluating and hoping to produce a paper on this later in the year. So in terms of the methodology and the training, we had already got 5 organisations interested through a little bit of kind of networking and putting the word out there. These 5 organisations came to 3 one-day training sessions. So not very much when you consider what we had intended to do. It was all in person. It was all in Bradford over June and July last year. And in those training sessions, we did a number of different things. We helped the community groups frame their stories, to think about first of all, their motivations through to the types of kind of storylines or themes that they wanted to integrate. We introduced filmmaking, and there's a little image there of a kind of piece, a bit of a sort of practice going on. through to the sound, the story creation, all of the kind of technical side of things. We talked about B-roll, which is the little clips that you see in between the sort of the interviews and the kind of longer shots. We did some editing with them as well, and we also gave them some homework. So we set them up, we then sent them away, and they came back with their drafts and their films. And we then did some sort of follow-on sessions online, and we gave some feedback on early drafts. Now, I mentioned this critical sustainability stories tool. For those that are unfamiliar, this is just a screenshot of the overall tool that myself and Alexandra Dales and Gemma Bridge, York St John, we co-produced this in the last couple of years. Now, that's another presentation altogether in terms of how we came up with it. But essentially, by working with storytellers, we came up with a framework that supports storytellers who want to then integrate climate change and sustainability themes within their own stories. And we came up with 6 topics there and a number of prompt questions under those topics. So just to pick out one on the left-hand side, critical activity. If you're talking about a particular topic and you want to explore, let's say, the topic itself, do you describe the issue, or do you then start to put some explanation on why there's an issue? And those questions there may then prompt the storytellers to actually think, oh, maybe we should go beyond just description of a problem. Maybe we should start to explain it. So yeah, not prescriptive, but it was just a kind of a guide to allow the community groups to think about the sorts of things that may be of importance to them when trying to integrate something around sustainability, social justice, environmental justice, etc. So that tool was used initially to frame some of the stories that the community groups were interested in. Secondly, we then got the community groups together and actually using the cameras, using the physical, the technical aspects to it. But we did it in a particular way. We did what I mentioned right at the beginning, a participatory video approach. So from the beginning, the community groups were told, you know, this is the equipment, you use it, or we'll show you how to use it, but it's really up to you to design those stories and do the interviews that you want to do. You have complete ownership of that film. It's not ours, it's not our film, it's your film. And so we ran through the storyboarding, the designing, filming, editing. There's a huge literature on this particular methodology. I'm happy to share links to that literature. What the literature is saying is that on the whole, it has multiple benefits. It empowers the participants. They can use those films for kind of advocacy work afterwards. They can get the word out there. They can invite discourse within their own communities, and that may prompt other kind of issues to come up. They may prompt policymakers and decision makers to actually, look at it and engage in discussion. But it's also great from a research point of view, because the films themselves, they're a piece of data, along with them maybe doing some interviews and follow-up discussions with the participants themselves. A very quick word on technology. The bottom line here was simple and easy to use as much as we could. So we acquired through the funding some 3 point and shoot Canon DSLRs. There's a little example of it. Very, very straightforward. Even for somebody like me, real technophobe, with a little bit of training, they were fairly easy to navigate, along with some wireless mics and tripods. Yeah, very, very straightforward on the whole. And we also used some freely available editing software. So if you're interested and you want to make your own film, do have a look at DaVinci Resolve. I'm not being paid by them. There's no commission. It's all out there. It's all freely available, but it's a very intuitive bit of kit there if you want to make a film. And here's just a couple of shots from the actual sort of training bit where we sent the groups off to do some practice interviews and B-roll, and you can see some excellent work going on there. So to just move in quickly then to the film. So I've got these clips, and I'm just, for each one, I've got a little bit of a sort of a summary of a key theme that I'd like you to look at. So the first one is from Catholic Care, and the first bit of the film, they talk about, or you'll see the hidden food insecurity in the UK food system. Now, hopefully this works. Let's have a look.
name is Lindsay Holmes and my role in Catholic Care is volunteer. I have a son now who's 21, and when he was 1 year old I was diagnosed with a rare medical condition. So I wasn't able to go back to work. And social services came and used to help me do the jobs what I couldn't do at home. I had the support from my mum and the rest of my family as well.
It was a real hard struggle, and especially with being a single parent and having a son, there really were hard, difficult times. I thought, oh, is this going to be, you know, is this it? Is this going to be it now for the rest of his life, in and out of hospital? And, you know, is she ever gonna pick up?
Because I was on my own with Harrison, I found myself coming back to church, because just that 5 minutes silence on a Sunday morning before everybody else comes in, it sort of helped me mentally accept what were happening. I first found out about Catholic Care when my mum was helping out at the lunch group, and I went along to help with the dinners and then became involved in taking meals out to people when it was COVID. When I was helping at the lunch group and I saw Sue setting up the food for the community market and there was more and more people coming, I thought, I wonder if she wants anybody.
I'm just going to stop it there. I mean, there's so many things I'd love to talk about. We don't have the time, but just the kind of the passion, the emotion that's running through that storyline. They picked Lindsay as the kind of narrative that they anchored the whole story around, but just also the production, you know, to remind you these are a group of community groups who have very limited filmmaking expertise prior, and if you look at the quality, I mean, it is really, really fantastic. So that was Catholic Cares. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is a community group called In Churches, similar, working around kind of a food pantry system. This particular clip talks about or refers to dignity in food insecure communities.
In addition to the work that food servers do, providing support through the pantries, they are also able to provide help with the cost of shopping through food vouchers provided through the Household Support Fund. This is money provided by the government to local authorities to help people struggling with the cost of food and other essential bills.
So we've got a voucher scheme which for us is really, really exciting. It's a really good partnership that we work in Bradford with the Osler Shopping Centre and in Keighley with Keighley Healthy Living are distributing them, and we're working with 2 suppliers now in Keighley. And the voucher scheme is where we give vouchers. It's a £5 voucher and they can choose some fresh ingredients from the market or from the traders in Keighley. I think the food vouchers are benefiting the charity in churches by giving people choice. I think what we're trying to do is, obviously, if we're giving people food parcels, then we need the stock in. If we're giving people a bag of shopping, we need the stock in. Whereas if we're giving somebody a voucher, we don't have to carry the stock. People can go and shop and buy their ingredients that they want to. So for us, it's two benefits really, is that we can give people dignity in the choice with a voucher and we don't have to carry the stock. Well, the third as well is we're not wasting any money. You know, so we give somebody a voucher and it's cost a piece of paper, and that, you know, for us, so there's 3 benefits.
Again, another emotive story, but bringing the connection that community have, or that group have, with their community. So using the voucher scheme instead of a different type of approach. Some people feel there's a stigma associated with going and asking for food from another organisation. So you see quite clearly how they kind of navigate that. So again, brilliantly done by in churches. Right, moving to a different topic and different groups. So Erin Nessa here, she makes a really good connection here between local and kind of what happens in a local context and how it affects other people beyond beyond that local community.
And I know Bangladesh is subject to flooding and all sort of climate-related emergencies.
And it's very important to protect our green space.
Recently, we have partnered up with Leeds University
to tackle climate change in as many ways as we can.
For example,
Collecting rubbish, using paper instead of plastic.
We will purchase water bottles, energy-saving light bulbs.
the harvesting rainwater is a classic one where we could potentially get all our houses connected with a rainwater butt on the rainwater pipe so that people can use those water.
If clients can see that what they are putting into their diet is having an indirect impact on globally, which is then affecting their families back home, who are then reliant on them financially, therefore then they are having to rely on food parcels because they're having to take a cut.
So again, yeah, fantastic use of the graphics as well. We had the different subtitles as well for the different languages. So, lots of different things going on there. So thank you, Erin. We're moving on to Horton Community Farm, and here, so different organisation working in a green space, a community green space. And the point that's being made here is about the health and well-being co-benefits of a safe community green space.
And when a suggestion was made from one of the other participants that they could just meet at a park, one of them said, well, no, because I feel safe in this space and this is where I want to be. I know that I can lie down in this space and feel safe and feel comfortable. And I don't think I can do that in a park. And I completely understood where they were coming from, because until I started lying down in this space for meditation practices, I hadn't realised, but I probably hadn't lied down on a grassy space in public since I was a child. And I don't think I would feel comfortable lying down in a park, even if there were a group of us, and just closing my eyes and feel confident to know that I could do that and it was safe enough for me to do that. So I think there would be a huge loss if we weren't here anymore. I think it would be a loss of a space and a sanctuary for people, but also for nature, the biodiversity that we have created. I've only been here for 5 years, but my colleagues have been here for a lot longer, and I can see the amount of work that they have put into this space and the difference that it has made to the space that we're in, and the birds that we can hear singing in the trees that are around us, that I don't think I ever hear anywhere else in Bradford.
Yeah, so again, fantastic. That I think that the sound really made a difference in that particular film. When you heard the birds singing, and then with the commentator there talking about the importance of having a green space and hearing birds within an urban space, with a little bit of policy advocacy saying we need to keep this, we need to retain this. I thought that was another very powerful film. And then finally, Feeding Bradford and Keighley. This is a very short clip, and it's again very pointed at thinking here about trying to change policy around this particular issue of food insecurity.
And food aid projects are doing a lot to tackle food insecurity and do more by helping people tackle their root causes, but we need decision makers to do their bit too. Both local and national government need to support us in supporting people to have enough income, whether that's challenging the low wage economy or increasing benefit levels and other support that they can get.
There we go. So that was Kathy at the end there, making again a strong statement about what changes she wants to see in the food system. So there you go. please feel free to go and watch those videos at your leisure. You'll learn a lot about those organisations and what they do. Just very quickly, I've run over big time here. So just to say a little bit about the impact, already had 400+ views combined for those 5 videos. I'm sure we're going to have a few more views after today. So it's getting out there. It's getting those stories out there beyond the communities, I think, as well. We have a screening event planned later in the year as part of Bradford Science Festival, where we're hopefully going to have the 5 community groups there present and doing some screening with the local community. The film has been shared with the local MP in Bradford, and some follow-up discussions are planned. Trussell Trust, they're an NGO that manage food banks, or over 1,000 food banks in the UK. They want to use Feeding Bradford and Keighley's film in some form, which is fantastic. And there are other events, community events planned as well, and potentially further films, which is great. So my very last slide in terms of content, critical reflections. Well, for me, the films speak for themselves. You know, we think about the journey that the community groups went on from, you know, next to no experience of filmmaking through to those, you know, 5 very powerful, well-produced films that tell these really important stories. It's fantastic, but it does require that dedication and time input. So I would say it doesn't just happen overnight. There is a lot of dedication spent by those companies to make them in the way that you see. It's a chance to raise awareness of the diverse experiences, amplify those hidden stories. So many hidden stories there, but that really come out through the films. And importantly, participants who are not involved in the filmmaking can then, you know, receive these, they can watch them, and they can give their input as well. So it's kind of helping to start a bit of a dialogue. It's a great way to communicate and engage new audiences, but, you know, done in that particular way, done through that kind of ownership model. It shouldn't be condescending. You know, it shouldn't really be patronizing. It's not me telling the story. It's coming from the groups. And of course, you can see a strong kind of policy advocacy message that's coming out in some of those films, which is great. And it empowers the individuals. The individuals, hopefully, you know, by the end of it, they've learned something. They've learned something on filmmaking. They may take up new roles as kind of communications people or additional roles, but there's also other skills, time management, problem solving. There's all sorts of additional kind of co-benefits or co-skills. And in terms of academic reflections, I think the films themselves, there are fantastic examples of the transformative impact of community-led initiatives. I think there's no question of that. When you watch those films, you see the real important work that they're doing, but it then makes you question these big kind of structural issues that we've got with our food system. You know, how do we scale up? How do we replicate some of these initiatives? Do we need to be more radical, be more political to kind of change the system? And how do we support these community groups going further? And 2 last points then. I think there's a real value of bringing together a storytelling tool like the CRIS tool with a participatory video. I think the 2 work really well together, particularly when we're thinking here about environmental and social justice issues. So that's really going to be a bit of a focus of our paper. And then lastly, you know, everyone's a storyteller. And I honestly believe that. I didn't think that initially at the beginning, certainly looking at myself, but I think by the end, you know, this particular participatory method, it really, you know, it's really something that kind of skills up not only the groups themselves, but the researchers. And you can then start to use that in an academic sense. You can analyze that data. You can start understanding patterns and trends and community issues, lived experience in a way that's a bit different to more conventional methods like surveys and interviews, focus groups. So I think it could move from a sort of fringe-ish method into something that's a bit more mainstream. And those are just 3 examples where I'm hoping to take it further in further research projects coming up. There we go. So that's the link to the films. I think they have been put in the chat while the talk was running. A link there to the CRIS tool and also the university page that sort of summarizes what we've done there, and then a couple of select references as well. So thank you for listening. Are there any questions? Not sure how much time we've got left.
Thank you, Rory. That was great. I have to say, somebody who's had the films made for the Yorkshire Lab as well, for somebody who struggles to even work his own phone at times and will turn my camera on, I'm always amazed at how well they do in producing these types of programs and telling these stories. So we have a few questions coming in the meantime.
Yeah.
I'll ask a question of my own. at the start there, you said something really important, I think, and that's around, given that this is like around participatory research methods, you use the term ownership, and it's ownership of the story. It's not your film, it's not our film, it's their film type thing.
Yeah.
How do you own a story? Because presumably this is a shared story, and the whole point is to engage people because you are sharing a shared story. What does ownership mean to you in terms of a story? And did anybody push back on the videos and say, well, I agreed for that to be the narrative that we gave, but there's parts of it that I don't particularly agree with, or my story is a little bit different?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And actually, just to say that in the literature on participatory video, there is a kind of theme around what is meaningful, what is authentic ownership, and surely even if you hand over the filmmaking, editing process, all of that, there's still maybe an uneven power relation between, let's say, the people providing the training who have won funding and everything else, and the participants. Maybe there still is an uneven power relation. I think that's something that the researchers or the people that are bringing in that training need to be cognizant of, or need to be aware of. Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of what is ownership there, it's providing the tools and frameworks and capabilities and, you know, the physical to the groups, and allowing them to take it in a direction that they want to. I suppose who owns the story, who owns the story of food insecurity of Bradford? Well, perhaps we all own it. We're all kind of responsible in some respects, some more than others. I'm thinking here about policymakers and decisions that they've made on certain key issues. But yeah, I think for me, ownership was that the groups themselves didn't feel, oh, I have to do a story about, you know, this particular part of the food system. Rather, it was about, right, what's motivating you? You know, what's motivating you to make a film, and what direction do you want to take it in? And here are some things that you could consider. You know, the Chris tool, it's not prescriptive, but there might be some questions there that prompt prompt some thoughts and some ideas. But yeah, we weren't ever going to say, oh, you're going to do it like this. that was the approach that we tried to take.
That leads to another question. Our colleague Lucy has actually asked and worded far better than I would have done. On that basis, so what did the groups think they would get out of this process, and what did they end up getting out of it?
Yeah, that's a nice question. So in terms of motivation, Lucy, we did in that very first session of the in-person training, we did a bit of a brainstorm where the group sat together and they did what's motivating me. So they had an A4 flip chart with some pens, and actually I've got some images. Perhaps I could have put that onto the slides there. And they, you know, some of them drew some pictures. You know, they said, oh, we'd like to showcase what our organization does. We want to showcase some of the issues that we face. There was some, I remember on one of the flip charts, there was some pictures of nature. I want to show nature. I think it might have been actually Horton Community Farms one. So I think there was a mixed motivations for wanting to do this. But I think generally they were motivated by trying to produce something for themselves and get the word out there for whatever reason, you know, whether at the community Horton Community Farm, there are some pressures there from the local council on their land potentially. So I know that there's they're pushing back on that, and that came through in the film. And then obviously Kathy at Feeding Bradford and Keighley had a strong kind of motivation to make a kind of policy point there about, you know, addressing the low-income economy and stuff like that. What did they end up getting out of it? Well, that's something that we are following up with the groups. So we have done some interviews, and we're going to do some second round of interviews. So that is a question definitely I'll put to them.
I think that somewhere asks that it leads to another question. That's like, you did mention next steps in some areas, but what would be the next steps for these stakeholders in terms of, so you're going to explore what they actually got out of it. I guess it's hard to say what the next steps are, but presumably they want their story to go beyond just being a story.
Yeah, exactly that. I think it's not just for the sake of spending 3 days. Well, it wasn't just 3 days. You know, you probably 3 days times X, because of course all of them, the actual filming that they did, and then the editing, and then there was some refilming. It was a lot more than 3 days. So I think that's something that we have to put to the groups. You know, where do they want to take it? Do they want to take their skills forward and create new films, which I know some of them have actually said to me that's what they want to do. Kathy, I don't think she's on the call, but she said she was going to watch this later on, from Feeding Bradford and Keighley. She's already secured some funding to do some community events, the Breaking Bread, using I think the film was used as part of the application, so that's great. So it's sort of demonstrating her work, but she's using the film also within those community sessions. So they're going to screen it and then invite comment from the community and get kind of a response. So what Kathy then does, and what these organisations do with the with the response, I think that's something that we need to find out and kind of work with the groups. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I think so. One question from the chat, and it might relate to that. Is there likely to be some courses around what you've been telling us? I'm not sure whether that means like academic courses or more community-based learning opportunities around what you're trying to do.
So there aren't plans. I mentioned on that final slide that I'm interested in employing this method. I mean, from a research point of view, in different contexts. But no, I mean, there aren't plans to actually kind of run training sessions. But I think if there's enough interest, I think that's something that certainly we could look to do, maybe through the Bradford groups, and ask them if there's any appetite from them. I mean, if there are any groups on this call who would like to have a kind of 3-day training, or would like some sort of training, I mean, I think that's something that we can definitely take up, or certainly explore with with the Institute here, and my colleague, I should mention Paul Cook, over in Arts, Humanities and the Culture Institute, who's his background is in filmmaking. So I think Paul would be very interested, and we can certainly pull something together. Yeah.
You think there's another step beyond video storytelling, given all the increases and advances in technology that we're seeing rapidly?
So as in other types of media, do you mean? Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've had some discussions, not with this group, but with colleagues about podcasts and audio. I know that's quite a kind of popular thing at the moment. So I think there are certainly other routes that we could go, and maybe film. You know, when I think of film, I kind of think of documentary film. But of course, the rise of Instagram and TikTok and those sort of things, that could be, I suppose, a kind of target perhaps of some filmmaking, sort of very short type films that pull together information in a kind of sort of almost snapshot type things, and that method might be slightly different, but I suppose the principles of participatory film would still be the same there.
I think the comment you made on the video relating to open spaces, green spaces, and being able to hear the bird song in the background, I was thinking along that lines. If the senses are really important to the storytelling, so I'm thinking about how can you incorporate that maybe in more broader ways, bring even more people into the storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the environmental side, I think the environment as a theme kind of came up in those films a little bit, but there's a strong social justice topic that runs through our films in the context of Bradford food insecurity. But I think you're right, maybe thinking, non-human, how can we bring the environment in to make those films more impactful, but we can certainly set some conversations going on this.
I haven't missed anything.
I'm just looking through the chats, through the questions. Yeah.
Comment, obviously, from Beverly about what a fantastic project this is, and that it is important that we empower communities. I think it's just it's good to see you providing an additional platform for communities to engage in this important topic. I think some of the figures you showed at the start around the amount of people experiencing hunger and the alarming figure you gave for the likely increase in that over the coming years. It shows you how valuable what the work you're doing is.
Well, it's not me, it's these groups that are getting that story out there. So yeah, I agree. These stories definitely need to be told.
If we don't have any more questions, I think we're right on the limit of Rory's time. So I'd remind everyone that the session has been recorded. It will be available on YouTube soon. Please visit the Global Food and Environment Institute website if you would like some more information about what we do. Otherwise, I'll say thank you to everyone and goodbye.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everybody.